My client Don Scales didn't just lose 50 pounds in a year, he got absolutely shredded. And he did it without having to starve himself, do boatloads of cardio, or have to work out every single day. So how'd he go from frustrated and stuck to absolutely shredded and confident? Well, let's break it down. So in this video, I'll show you how Don lost 50 pounds in the past 12 months, the exact plan he followed to get shredded while keeping sustainability at the forefront of his plan, and the 3 biggest takeaways from his journey that you can apply to yours right away. But what was the #1 mindset shift that Don made that had the biggest impact in his journey? Because Don's story starts where most of us have been at least one point in our lives. And it might be where you are right now. And that's just feeling overwhelmed. You know, back in the day, it was hard to find information. You had to really dig for quality stuff. Today, there's just too much information. And that can lead to overwhelm, confusion, and ultimately burnout with trying to chase way too many different ways of getting in shape. So just a little bit of history on Don. You know, Don came to us and joined my program after knowing me from college. We had reconnected nearly 15 years later, and he'd been following me online and seeing the results we've been getting from our program, which, by the way, if you want to start getting results right now, you can check out the link below. I actually have a metabolic assessment that you can take along with an absolutely free 7-day momentum building shred that most of our clients start with. If you're interested in that, go check it out. But Don had been following me and he'd seen the results. And so after being friends in college, and I'll share a really cool story later in the video about Don, he decided to take a leap of faith and jump into our program. But when he started, he was overweight, his confidence had taken a huge dive, and he was really just frustrated with trying a number of different things. One being CrossFit. He had tried going low carb, none of which he could sustain. He just felt worse and worse and just wasn't seeing the changes that he wanted to see. Not to mention, Don's in the military, has a really busy schedule. He runs a whole department and a lot of people answer to him. So first of all, he wanted to lead from the front. You know, he didn't feel like he was showing up for his team. But second of all, he's got a lot of people looking and asking for his time. You know, not to mention he has relationships, friendships, he has a marriage that he was not married at the time, but he was getting ready to get married. And so he had a lot of things that he was trying to juggle. And so he didn't have all the time in the world to be living in the gym, cooking 10 meals a day, and trying to juggle a really complicated plan. But the big mindset shift was that he made a 100% all-in commitment to our process. You know, it was no longer about, well, let me see if this works for a couple weeks. Let me do this for 21 days. Let me do this for 30 days. If it works for a day, then I'll keep going. It was like, dude, I'm just gonna trust the process for once. You know, I'm not gonna only trust it if I get the result. I'm gonna trust it no matter what. I'm gonna see it through. And this huge shift in how he was thinking allowed him to really just put the blinders on, right? Because so many times we join or we start a diet or we go to a new gym and we're like, let me test the waters. Don just jumped right in. It was like, listen, I'll figure it out, but I'm going all in. No longer am I just playing on the sidelines. And the other thing that he shifted was he got away from outcome-focused goals, right? Where he was like, I wanna see a number on the scale. I wanna see my abs. I wanna see a body fat percentage. Those are outcome focused, and it gets frustrating because those outcomes don't come overnight. So instead, what we started leaning on was a process driven and process focused plan where we could celebrate wins every day just by checking the box of hitting the things that we needed to do from a process perspective, which we'll obviously talk about exactly what he did here shortly. But you gotta ditch the whole outcome focused game because that's gonna take time. You know, if you're only gonna get happy when you see a number on the scale, or heck, if you're a business owner and you're only gonna get happy when the bank account looks a certain way, you're missing out on so many opportunities to celebrate wins as you move forward through the process, whether it was hitting a step goal, hitting his food goals, or lifting more weights in the gym. There's so many opportunities to celebrate along the way. So his big mindset shift was going all in and making it process focused rather than outcome driven. Losing 50 pounds in a year doesn't require magic or any kind of complicated formulas. Really what it comes down to is a smart, sustainable system. So the first thing we implemented was his movement game plan. We put him on our 3M system, starting with pillar #1, which is movement. And instead of having him do a whole lot of scheduled cardio, right? Because he's a busy guy, you know, the last thing I want to do was tell him, hey, dude, you got to go to the gym a few times a week and you got to do cardio sessions on top of that. What we instead did was we focused on his daily movement goal. How much can we get in terms of steps throughout the day? I know this might sound like something you've heard before, and maybe it is. Maybe you've checked out one of our programs, which, by the way, if you haven't, you should start with the 7-day momentum building shred. It's absolutely free. You can go check it out below along with a boatload of other free resources and some paid resources too, if you're ready for that. But one of the first things we did with Don was we implemented his daily morning movement. And it was just simply a commitment to get up and move. Sometimes that involved going to the gym. Sometimes that involved just going for a walk with his dogs. Or sometimes it was just like getting on the bike and pedaling for 30 minutes, just to get the blood flowing. Now, this morning movement didn't have to be a certain amount of time. It was just a commitment to move, which set the tone for the rest of the day. The rest of the day, we were just focused on hitting a number of steps. So whether that was 10,000 steps at some points or 8,000 steps when we first started, eventually, for a period of time, we got him up to hitting about 12,000 steps a day to help him burn more calories throughout his day in a lifestyle-friendly way. This didn't have to be anything crazy. You didn't have to do any kind of special walking. It was literally just get up off your desk and go for a walk. Could be around the office, could be going to lunch and leaving a few minutes early to walk back to the office. Ultimately, it was just a movement protocol that made sense for his day-to-day. Now, I will say eventually, as Don got leaner and leaner, we started implementing more intense versions of cardio. It wasn't always like boring cardio though. Sometimes he would go for a run because he likes running. You don't have to run to lose weight. In fact, I rarely prescribe running for anybody, period, unless you're going after a performance goal, which we'll talk about some of the cool things Don has done. And I gotta still tell you that story about Don that I think you'll find interesting. So stay tuned because I'm gonna share a really cool story. But when it came to cardio, we started to mix things up. So he would actually go to a CrossFit gym a few times a week, even though, yes, I'm one of the world's biggest CrossFit haters for people trying to get in shape. But at the end of the day, I do like a good challenge. So he would go and do some CrossFit workouts to build his cardiovascular system and keep things interesting. And that's just what he enjoyed, which ultimately is the most important part and biggest factor when it comes to sticking with this whole thing called fitness. Now, in terms of strength training, once we had the movement protocol dialed in and he was very consistent with tracking and hitting his steps, the one thing we really wanted to focus on was a schedule for lifting that allowed him to recover enough in between sessions, but also gave him the results he was looking for from a muscle building perspective. Now, I'm not here to tell you that there's a one-size-fits-all approach, but I do have a favorite approach when it comes to setting up a training schedule. For Don, it was a 4-day split, focused on upper body one day, lower body the next, and then another upper body, lower split. So 2 upper body days, 2 lower body days. And our big focus, which I think so many people need to focus on, is getting stronger. Stop trying to go in the gym and rush through your workouts, trying to sweat as much as you can, trying to make it burn, trying to be out of breath. Save that for the cardio days. What I wanted Don to focus on was simply getting stronger on key movements. Rows, presses, both vertical and horizontal presses, and then of course legs, right? A squat version, something like a leg press or a goblet squat, and then of course the posterior chain, which most people neglect. That's all the muscles on the backside of your body. So I know everybody hates deadlifts because for a lot of people, they just struggle to get into that position. They just don't have the hip mobility and the back strength and all those things required to do a good deadlift. But you can still do deadlifts, just different variations that are safer, like a Romanian deadlift. A Romanian deadlift allows you to just put the emphasis on the biggest muscle in the body, or the strongest muscle for most people, which is the glutes. Just most people ignore the glutes. But we had Don doing things like that to make sure we were strengthening the key parts of the body that would not only help him look good, but help him perform really well in his day-to-day life inside the military. Now, that's pillar number 2 of our 3M system. Don stuck with that 4-day split, and I actually think he still runs that today. He's part of our long-term client group now. We call ambassadors. He's been a friend of mine since college, which, by the way, maybe now is a good time to tell the story. So Don was actually the first person to ever hire me at a gym. When I was in college, I applied to work at the gym on campus. Don hired me. He was my manager for about a year when I worked there, and we just became friends, and we stayed in touch via social media over the years. And this is a shout out and a testament to the power of social media. You stay in touch with people you care about, and then ultimately you become clients or partners or friends or whatever, and it's pretty cool. So Don Scales, first person to ever give me my first fitness job. Now, we got to talk about the third pillar when it comes to this whole 3M system. For those watching, I'm going to try to keep the nutrition, or as we call it, the meals pillar, super simple for you. The number one rule that we had with Don out of the gate that I think you should always take time to at least look at is making sure the foods on your meal plan are foods that you actually like. If you don't like the foods you're eating and you hate the foods that you're on your meal plan, you're going to really struggle to lose fat. You have to love, or you at least have kind of like, the foods and the meals that you have on your plan. The number one rule though with fat loss, and I've said it in almost every fat loss video, probably twice in every video, is you have to stick to a calorie deficit. You have to burn more calories than you eat long enough to see your body tap into body fat so that you get leaner. So the key though is finding the balance between a sustainable, like low amount calorie deficit to where you're not starving yourself, but also a big enough calorie deficit where you see results. So this is why I like putting a big emphasis on moving more. So you burn more calories throughout the day. This allows you to actually eat a little bit more and still be in a significant calorie deficit. This is what we did with Don. We put him on a nutrition plan that was actually very balanced. So pretty good amount of protein, decent amount of carbs, and a decent amount of fats. In terms of calories, I wanna say his calories were right around like 2,200 to 2,300 a day for a good portion of his first phase. We did bring that down as time went on, and we pushed to get him really, really shredded so that he got that look that he was after, but we never put him into a situation where he was starving all the time. It was always a controlled hunger to where, yeah, when it was time to eat, he was ready to eat, but he was never at a point where he was so hungry that he was looking to binge eat and completely blow his calories all the time. We did focus on high protein because we wanted him to hold on to as much muscle as possible and stay satiated, right? Like that's the whole thing with protein too, guys, is protein fills you up. Like it's really hard to overeat protein sources, like chicken, beef, eggs. You fill up really quickly when you eat those things, and your calories are gonna be much easier to control because those foods are really satiating. But we did things like eggs and toast, steak and potatoes, healthy burgers, Greek yogurt and fruit, things that he enjoyed that he could see himself putting together really quickly. Of course, hitting his calories and hitting his protein targets day in and day out, which allowed him to stay consistent. And for the first time in his life, he actually enjoyed his nutrition on a fat loss diet. Most people just hate it and they just do it because they're like, I gotta get rid of this weight. And they actually despise the diet that they're on, but they want the results, so they push through it. We just wanna give you the best of both worlds, the enjoyment and the actual results themselves. So what can you learn from Don's transformation? Here are 3 major takeaways that I think will help you right now. Lesson number 1 is make small but yet consistent changes. So make some things that are pretty doable in terms of changes right out of the gate, but just stay consistent with them. Don't change one thing and then stop doing it a day later. Stick to the game plan, which is small changes done consistently over time lead to huge results. With Don, we didn't go in and reinvent his entire life. We tweaked, the number of days that he worked out. We tweaked his calories. We tweaked some of his food choices, and we definitely changed his cardio approach, but none of it was like, oh my gosh, I have to reinvent my whole life, or I have to change my career, or I can't see my friends or my spouse anymore. It's like all of that is the exact opposite of what we preach. We want you to actually enjoy your life more while getting in incredible shape. Lesson number 2 is balance is key. There's definitely an argument for certain areas of life and a balance idea going out the window, meaning if you're trying to start a business, you're probably not gonna be balanced for a while because you're running a business. It takes a lot of work. Being a first-time parent, when you have kids, if you've had kids before, there's a lot of unbalanced nights and days that come with that. And that's just okay. That's okay. Like that's part of the game. With fitness though, I think there is an argument for having balance. I don't think we need to be crazy freaks of nature 24/7, eat absolutely perfect every single day. I think we're gonna experience more sustainability and long-term adherence when we really aim for that balance of like enough recovery and enough workouts, some enjoyment with food, and just some healthy, boring stuff that covers the bases that we need. We don't need to be so out of balance just to get an extreme result. We can get an extreme result while being balanced. And then finally, the 3rd lesson, trust the process. I mentioned it before in the video, but when we're so outcome driven, when it's like, I'm only gonna be happy if I see the outcome, man, we're missing so much in terms of wins from the process itself. The process, when we go all in on it, is where we'll get fulfillment. That is where not only will we feel happier, we'll feel more at ease, anxiety will go away, but we have an opportunity every day to celebrate. Like, yep, I did my steps. Yep, I did my workout. Yep, I hit my calories, instead of being like, nope, I suck because I don't have abs yet. Or no, I suck because the scale's not where it is yet. Trust me, you will get there. It just might take longer than you think, but it's worth it. It's worth it because you're doing right by yourself. You're doing right for you. You're gonna feel better, and you're stepping into potential that's gonna lead your family, that's going to be a shining example for the people you care about, and most importantly, you are gonna be proud of you. And that is something that most people undervalue and underestimate. So Don's transformation, it shows what's possible with the right plan, the right mindset, and of course the right team to help support you and guide you there. So are you ready to take the next step? All you have to do, go to the description below or the first comment. I have some really cool and free next steps for you. If you're someone who is super serious, you are a go-getter, you're someone who's like, hey, I wanna step into my potential. I need someone who's got my back, who believes in me. Well, that's the true transformation. That's what we're here for. We believe in you. It's that simple, and we got your back. My name's Josiah Novak, and I appreciate you watching today's video. If this one helped, let me know what your number 1 takeaway was in the comments below. I answer every single comment. I'm happy to help you find your true transformation. In the meantime, life moves fast. Make it count. Talk to you soon. Peace.